We want to see and get some options in case see the sound it sounds like.
Okay, yeah, because it'd be good on output too.
What we're going to do with the recording, well, all we're doing now is we're just going to lay things down to see what it sounds like so we can have playback, so we can get a little more creative with it.
Cool. Right.
Because all we're working on now is just the first meet and greet. So there's a big hole for jazz, but even though we stopped doing the broadcast, I still kept getting CDs in. And publicists and management and artists were sending me CDs. And I was still getting like a CD a week. And the same question kept popping up: why can't we get airplay? You know, why can't we make this happen? And it's because there really is no real good airplay, number one. But then number two, I started listening to the way these things were recorded. And even some major labels, it sounded like a really bad studio 70s rock album. You know, every drum was mic'd, and the compression is just way too hard, and you know, everything sounds benign. And there's some really good players on this thing, but it's terrible to listen to. And so I went back to my dad's vinyl that he gave me, and I still love it. I still spin vinyl, the old vinyl, and this is from the 50s, the 60s. And there are some recordings that were made with like 2 microphones in a small studio that sound fantastic. It's a pleasure to listen to. And so after getting all these CDs in, I'm hearing what's being put out by some of the majors. And most of it is self-produced. They go to the majors, and then the majors, it's more of a distributorship. They were so bad, you just didn't want to even hear them. And then the other thing that they're not doing, and I don't understand this, because I've talked to I've said one of the purposes of everything I'm doing, the media has changed. People are listening to music on their iPhones or on their smartphones, and they're listening through earbuds that are pretty high-tech earbuds. You know, why aren't they mixing digital download songs for the earbuds, for somebody's iPhone or somebody's smartphone? They're like, well, no, they're doing it the old-fashioned way. They're doing it like somebody has their own home theater, or they have massive speakers sitting in their living room, and they're paying all this money for this stuff. Most people don't have that. They only listen to it on their smartphone, or they listen to it in their car. It was most of the time that people listen to music nowadays. And so you've got to mix this music based upon some guy in an hour commute, or a half-hour commute. I mean, here in Southern California, an hour commute is nothing. Or somebody who's exercising or taking a walk with earbuds on. It's got to be mixed to that. And they're not doing that either. So there's another hole for jazz, you know. So going back to these things, I decided if we're going to do this, if jazz is going to survive, it has to survive in a new age. But at the same time, it has to use the old mentality that was there, which was keeping it simple and not overproducing it. So I decided that I was going to try and produce a jazz album on the basis of not overproduction, let jazz be jazz. Some of the live albums that I have sound really good, so I really wanted that live, not studio, but more of a live feel to it. And at the same time, I wanted to use the best equipment that we could get, that we could afford. So I had an ace in my back pocket, so we can, if we needed to sharpen something up, if something fell apart, we could work on it. At the same time, once you have that basics of going back to the old style of how jazz was recorded and the traditional way that jazz is as a live performance, utilizing the new technology and realizing that people are going to be using technology with smartphones and CD players and MP3 players in their car. So once we finally get a good recording that we consider to be a good live, studio live performance, everybody playing in the same place, no overdubbing, then we need to consider the marketplace. And the only 2 outlets that I can see that are worth it is vinyl, which would be more of a home mix, or digital download, which would be more of an earbud car mix. And that's how that's how I started projects, and then we just tried to get the right musicians together, and that's when the hard part started. The first project we did fell apart because there were too many snakes in the grass and not enough cooperation, and it just I thought I had a good combination. Didn't work. So I went on hiatus for a little bit, and we shut everything down just said, let's just clear our heads and start all over again. And that's how we came to these sessions that we're doing right now.
Any favorite standards?
Sean Longstreet. Oh boy, how do I describe Sean Longstreet? First off, Sean is probably one of the most zen guys I've ever met in my life. He's just cool as you can get. Sean is so cool. Sean's dog also is about as zen as they possibly can. Matter of fact, if you ever saw Sean's dog, it's a full-size poodle. Wouldn't doubt if it would start doing yoga poses. You know, that type of serious stuff like that. So Sean has this really cool zen persona about him, you know, and his playing reflects that. His playing actually reflects his personality. It's very cool, it's very smooth, but it's also very intellectual. It's also very well thought out. He will go through a tremendous amount of effort to make sure that he's on the right path, and I've even seen him write. Once he's on that path, it just becomes a smooth transition. It just keeps going faster and faster and faster. So his playing has that quality. The other good aspect about Sean, he's an incredibly good technical player. I mean, he is really, really well versed, and he's also extremely just a chop monster, just a great, great guitar player. And actually, he started out, the way I met him is he used to work, we would have parties at my home, and, you know, good-sized parties. We always had jazz musicians play the parties, because that was just my thing. And Sean was suggested by one of the guys who used to play the parties and said, hey, can, you know, Sean play the party? I said, absolutely, bring him in. You see he's a chop monster. That's how I first met him.
I'm going to bring guitar up. I feel like guitar is soft.
Jim
Yeah.
is
Well, okay, let me not
like...
use that level, so just tell me if
Oh, it's fine. Oh, gosh.
Let's work with it. Yeah.
He can be almost like a chameleon. You plug him into whatever situation. I think this comes from him being on the road and playing a lot of session work. He can become whatever it is that you need for this particular song. But at the same time, he has a distinctive sound and a distinctive way of playing that's strictly Jim. Jim is one of these guys who is thinking, I mean, he's literally worked out the entire song in a matter of 5 seconds. It's difficult because sometimes he kind of gets into these really zen, quiet places, but in his head, he's working in it. He's already 5 steps ahead of everybody else. So, working with somebody like that is a little overwhelming because he is such a good player and he's such a good interpreter. And he's such a chop monster. I mean, he does things... I mean, I've worked on saxophones before, and I've been his... Actually, that's how I met Jim. I started working on the saxophones. And he does things mechanically that are almost impossible. Jim has this ability of getting sound and substance that I'm sitting... I know how these things work mechanically. I'm going, how did you just do that? He just... For him, it's just like walking or talking or, you know, doesn't matter. It's easy for Jim. So I really like working with somebody like Jim. And here's the incredible thing. If you were at a party, all right, so we're at this party, okay, and we've got all these musicians wandering around. Jim would never talk to Sean, and Sean would never talk to Jim. Because personality-wise, they're completely different. Completely. Couldn't have been more polar. But musically, they're able to jive really, really super well. So, and I knew this because I knew them both separately. I knew that they were both on the same musical journey. Their paths were very close and similar as far as their creativity and how they think and all that kind of thing. So I threw a Hail Mary pass and I said, well, you know, Jim, would you like to meet Sean? And, you know, and I called him Sean. I said, Sean, would you like to meet Jim? You know, and let's just see if everything, you know, if you guys can work together. And they both were really enthusiastic about it. This, Sean was like, "No, I really want to work with you if we could do something because you have the right ear, and I really, So I said, "Fine." So we just had him over. We didn't have any cameras or anything at the time. I just wanted to see if these two guys could sit in a room and work together. It was like fire and gasoline. It just exploded. The creativity that they kept bouncing. They were going so fast with charting things out, with going through tunes. My mind was spinning. I literally got to the point where I just said, you know what, I'm just going to back away and just let it happen. It doesn't matter if you don't know what's going on. We'll pick up what's going on later. And that's actually when the whole idea came to me that from now on we need to have full documentation. Sean played the part and he said, absolutely, bring them in. You see, he's a child monster. That's how I first met him.
You're almost done.
Are you done? Are you serious?